Hello everyone, my name is Casey Johnson and I love video games. You see, I love artful little indie games that make you think. I love big AAA experiences with big moments and sweeping set pieces, but there's something missing from today's gaming scene.
Were they great? Usually not. Were they terrible? Sometimes. But usually they were beautifully mediocre, and their place in the industry, especially in the PS2 generation, can't be matched. I'm willing to admit it.
I love crappy movie tie-in games, and frankly, I miss them. Let's do a case study.
Now, movie tie-in games are nothing new. The first game based on a movie was Death Race, an arcade machine from 1976. This was one of the first games to spark the debate about graphic violence in video games. You see, you ran over these little gremlins, and when you ran over them, it killed them, and you know they were dead because there was a tombstone, and the game was called Death Race. Death is right in the name!
Oh my god, I'm corrupted!
This was a whole situation. Arcades were shut down, arcade cabinets were smashed, all over this.
The first officially licensed movie tie-in game was Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark, followed quickly by Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, and then by, well, you guessed it.
E.T. the Extraterrestrial for the Atari 2600, the most disastrous release in gaming history. You've heard of this incredible failure, but let's talk about what happened. The game was developed by Howard Scott Warshaw, the same man who developed Raiders of the Lost Ark. After seeing this game, Steven Spielberg requested a game to release with E.T.
This is important and will continue to be throughout this video. Part of the issue with a lot of movie tie-in games is that they have to release with the movie. The game studio can't take their time and make a project better. After negotiations were over, Warshaw only had 5.5 weeks to make the game.
That went just about as well as you would expect. The game is historically bad. It helped cause the video game industry crash in 1983, and Atari buried the evidence of this colossal failure in the Nevada desert. The gaming industry was threatened, but what wasn't was licensed games and their place in whatever industry was left.
In the 80s alone, there were 79 movie games.
Rocky, Star Wars, Top Gun, Back to the Future, RoboCop. Every single major release got a game.
Around this time though, something else happened to movie games. They got pretty good. And over the course of the 90s, they got even better until 1997 when the unthinkable happened.
This movie game birthed an entire genre. Now, were there first-person shooters before GoldenEye? Sure, but none of them permeated the industry like GoldenEye. GoldenEye truly introduced the world at large to the multiplayer format we still know to this day. There was a map that you could run around with guns, chasing and shooting and killing each other at will.
Oh my god, I'm corrupted!
Not to mention a full story mode with an open level design and a story that followed the movie's plot and...
This is freaking unplayable.
Don't get me wrong, it's a wonderful game, but GoldenEye suffers from the same issues as a lot of games around that time. It just doesn't hold up as well as you would like. The beginning of the 3D era was a little shaky.
Trying to play this game in 2020 is like trying to read a book. It's fine for what it is, but the experience just doesn't hold up when I can play Fall Guys.
Nevertheless, movie games were a big deal. These tie-ins made money, and when a little console called the PS2 came out, they got even bigger.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but in the PS2 generation, movie video games exploded. Maybe it was the perfect cross-section between the ability to make a game quickly and the size of the player base and interest in the movies. I don't know, but once again, and maybe even more so than the 80s, if it had a movie, there was a game adaptation. So let's try some out at random, see how they play in 2021, and I'll rate them with a cheesy pun from the movie.
Let's start with some of the ones I had when I was a kid. The one I have the best memories with is probably The Incredibles. I remember The Incredibles as a challenging yet fun platforming beat-em-up, and it pretty much still is.
I had a lot of fun with this one. Part of the cool factor is that the original cast is in the game and it uses clips from the movie. But the in-game lines aren't very plentiful. You can expect to hear Samuel L. Jackson, but not a ton of him.
Nevertheless, I still had decent fun with this game in 2021, even if it was a bit more simple than I remember. It was a good time.
The Incredibles? Yeah, I got time.
Now, speaking of a surprisingly good time, the Cars video game is exactly that.
They got the original cast, and not just for sound bites. They voiced this entire game, and it's kind of like a gas station version of a Burnout Paradise in the best way possible.
There isn't necessarily a mission structure with side missions and main missions. I mean, there is, but it's an open world, and all of these missions are just the game, no matter what their structure is. Driving around a model of Radiator Springs is fun, and darn it, the driving mechanics are great. A little simple, but they're great.
This is a great starting driving game that is still a lot of fun to this day. I had a lot of fun with it. I Am Speed. Kerchoo!
And then there's Iron Man. I recently started a rewatch of the MCU, and I was looking forward to trying this out again.
Mistake.
This game is terrible. You start out with the Mark I suit that Tony Stark built in that cave.
From a walk with crap!
The gameplay is legitimately fun, the mechanics are sound, but dear God, they send so many missiles at you and so many enemies at you that the game just becomes crushingly difficult. It takes all the fun out of it.
I am not Iron Man.
Popping in 2002's Rocky movie game, I wasn't expecting much. I expected a mediocre boxing game, and in the end, I got
A pretty darn good boxing game.
Listen, boxing isn't my thing, but I beat up this dude and this dude and this dude too. I don't know strategy, but on a low difficulty, it was fun just to throw haymakers and dodge and then throw some more. And then, on a higher difficulty, I got my face punched in and ruined the storyline of the first Rocky movie. So I guess this game has some depth.
Yo, Adrian, you did it.
When the Transformers movie came out, no one expected this.
For a movie game, for a PS2 game, this game has no business being so darn fun. You fight, you drive, you transform! What's not to love?
Some of the original cast from the movie is here, and although the story has changed a bit, you get the idea. I don't know, this game got terrible reviews, but I'm telling you, it's worth your time and your money. Is it deep?
No.
Is it a masterpiece?
No.
But heck, I smiled the whole time I played it. That's the point, right?
Autobots, roll out.
Next, we have X-Men Origins Wolverine. X-Men Origins Wolverine is not a great movie, but that's a separate show. The game based on the movie is pretty good.
It follows the same rough plot as the film, and man, this is a good time. I feel powerful as Logan, and my claws slash through people. It isn't all that challenging, but it doesn't need to be.
At the end of the day, this is a beat-em-up of the highest order. I loved it, and this one helped me take out some aggression.
They finally found a way to shut me up.
Now, this bears revisiting at some point in their own video, but then there's all the DreamWorks and Pixar platformers. These games had combat, but that wasn't the focus. These games like Over the Hedge and Ratatouille and Madagascar, no, not that game, I hate that game, that's better.
These are the ones I remember most vaguely, but also fondly. The gameplay wasn't memorable, but snippets of them exist in my mind, and I'd like to revisit them in more detail one day.
And then there's Spider-Man 2. Good God, this game is still excellent. If you like Spider-Man 2018 and you haven't played this, then you owe it to yourself.
Most of the 2018 game was based off of these mechanics in some way. The swinging mechanic, the world events that randomly pop up, and then there was the stuff that didn't make it to 2018 and now live forever in this game.
You can never forget grabbing that kid's balloon, or my God, delivering pizza. With almost the entire cast there, following the plot of the movie, plus plenty of other fun side missions, and boss battles that aren't in the movie, and power-ups, and solid gameplay, and the swinging, it's just so good.
Go get him, Tiger. And come on, we can't just not talk about the LEGO games. There's a LEGO game based on everything, and that started this generation.
Star Wars started the craze, followed by Indiana Jones, Batman, Harry Potter, and Pirates of the Caribbean, and they just racked up win after win after win.
It seems a bit weird to think about now, but these were the hottest games in the world. Adults loved them, kids loved them, adults loved playing them with kids. It was the rare thing that everyone in the family could enjoy. Video games based on movies were at their peak. And then they just kind of went away.
The 360 generation had a couple of 007 games, some Kung Fu Panda games, a couple DreamWorks games, but not much else of note. And then it completely fell off a cliff. The PS4 generation had virtually no movie games, and there hasn't been a movie game even made since 2017.
But what happened? Who do we have to blame for this incredible travesty? Oh yeah.
That's the secret. Movie games haven't gone away, they're just apps now. If there's a big movie release, some kind of mobile game will come out. I mean, after all, the movie industry never wanted video game tie-ins because they love games. It's because they like money, and apps are easier to develop, and like a match 3 puzzler is probably a bigger money-making opportunity. But personally, I think this is a shame.
Look, most movie games weren't great, but they were fun. They were short experiences with decent mechanics to tide you over between larger experiences. I miss the industry having that little palate cleanser. The LEGO games are still going, but that's not making up for what was a genre in and of itself.
Stuff like the Cars game, the Incredibles game, and even the Iron Man game are an important place in history. Everything doesn't have to be a giant AAA experience. Marvel's Avengers learned that this past year. Sometimes a smaller budget experience can really scratch an itch. Besides, how else am I gonna get corrupted?
Oh hey, is that Metallica?